Hello, Serious Survivor here. And it looks like things are getting a lot worse before they get better. As of today, Sunday, April 5th, there are over 300,000 cases in the U.S. alone of the coronavirus. And we're seeing this number grow exponentially on a day by day basis. We know we're on a lockdown until April 30th, and I hate to use the word lockdown because this is not really a hard lockdown. It's more like a soft lockdown, one in which people are being asked to quarantine themselves, asked to stay at home, but no one's really being forced to yet. Although I do believe that's going to come very rapidly. And one of the reasons it's going to come is because so far we haven't seen, some people have, but most people have not seen the dramatic economic impact that this is going to have on the individuals in the U.S. As these businesses remain closed, more and more people are going to permanently lose their job. We hear the government talking about they're going to send us out some checks, they're going to send us some money to help out. They've raised unemployment benefits, but we do have to question this as far as will they do it? Sure, I believe they will. They will send the money out sometime this month to people. They will increase unemployment benefits. But how long can the government keep that up before the government itself collapses financially? They can't just pay people to stay at home. This just cannot last long term. This is definitely a short term solution to a long term problem. Just because the government says we'll be better by April 30th doesn't mean that the country's going to be in a better state by then. And at that point, they keep talking about flattening the curve, but when we flatten the curve, what we do is increase the length of time in which we're going to have to battle this. Now, I'm not saying don't flatten the curve. I'm not saying let's not fight it. We should. But what I mean is just because the growth isn't as exponential as we expected and the curve that we keep talking about is flattened somewhat doesn't mean the problem has gone away. It means the problem basically is going to be extended over a longer period of time. One of the biggest impacts that I do believe, and we're starting to see it now, some people are starting to feel it now, and that's the economic aspect of it. This is going to be something that is extremely difficult for this country to recover from, not just this country, but possibly worldwide. We see a lot of countries that are impacted percentage wise of their population, even more than us right now. We have the highest numbers, but percentage of our population, we're not the highest in the world. And these other countries have basically locked down their nation. Look at what it took for China. It took people being welded into their homes, people being drug off, people, God knows what, being done to these people, people put in hospitals that look like prisons. And this has helped them to somewhat keep this under control or eliminate it, as they say. Whether we can believe those numbers or not, that's a whole different subject. But that's what it took for them to even slow it down. Here, we're not doing that. I mean, we talk about a lockdown, we talk about stay at home orders, but who's really doing that? I know a lot of people are, but a lot of people aren't. A lot of people are still out carrying on their day to day business, walking the streets and doing all kinds of stuff. With every press conference they have, I understand that the president, the government officials, they have to try to maintain somewhat of a positive attitude. They don't want to create fear and create panic in the streets, but this is already happening. A lot of the hospitals in the U.S. are at capacity right now. And the ones that are hardest hit, they don't have room for even the simplest patients anymore, the simplest cases anymore. So people are being turned away. Some parts of the country don't even see this yet. Some parts of the country, there's not many people at all that are infected, and it seems like life is just normal. But for other parts of the country, life has changed dramatically, and this change could very well last throughout the entire summer and maybe even longer. We can't put a deadline on the virus. We can't tell the virus that you're going to be gone by April 30th. It's just not going to happen that way. By April 30th, we'll probably be in the midst of a huge, huge increase in cases. The more people we test, the more cases obviously we're going to find, and the more deaths that we'll find that are linked to this disease. But for those that survive it, for those that don't get it, the hard part is going to be the economic recovery afterwards. When we look at large businesses will probably be able to weather the storm a lot better than small business because they're going to get bailed out by the government. They're going to find a way to survive. Big companies just don't generally tend to collapse overnight, but small businesses can collapse from just 1 to 2 days sometimes of no business. And this is going to really hurt our economy because the backbone of the U.S. is small business. And when these businesses begin shutting their doors and not reopening, then those employees that relied on those business for their livelihood, for their means of survival, they're going to basically be left out in the cold at that point. And you can't blame the small business. Without foot traffic, without people coming in and out of the stores, nothing's being sold, no money's being made. They have no choice but to close the doors. But that's the hard part. That's going to be the difficult recovery for us, and it's the economic recovery. We can't just reopen tens of thousands of small businesses overnight. The government can't afford to just give these people or give these businesses all this money to reopen. Where's that money going to come from? I mean, I know that when we watch the press conferences, it seems like they're talking about, hey, this is good news. This is going to get better. It's going to get better. And at some point it will get better. But the real question is when the virus aspect of this gets better, so to speak, what about the economy? What about the people that have truly been out of work for the last, 2 to 3 months? What about those that say didn't have a job before this started and now they can't find a job and they don't qualify for unemployment? There's a lot of other factors that don't get talked about. And what about when the police are on the front lines of responding, police and firefighters, and they start getting quarantined, like Detroit, about 20% of the police force is quarantined right now. So that means they're running short-handed. Their officers are working 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts, and even longer. And this is only going to get worse as the economy continues to fall. And we're going to start seeing the dramatic impact of that. People who do not have the means, who have not, prepared for something, I ain't gonna say like this, but for something in general to where they can take care of their family for 6 months to a year or something to that effect, these people are going to begin to panic. And that's when we're going to start to see a lot of civil unrest. We're going to start to see riots in the streets. And it's just inevitable at this point. I don't think we can get around that. We see riots before this ever happened for nothing sometimes. But now we're going to see some because people are hungry, people are struggling, and people want answers. People want solutions. And with an economic collapse, there's no clear-cut solution to this. And when the government overextends itself with all of the payments that it's going to be given out, with the increases in unemployment, then where's this money going to come from? And that's the real question. Where's it going to come from? I know it's a loan from the Fed, but how do we intend to pay that back if nobody's working and paying taxes? And this is going to be an extremely trying time for a lot of us. And I hope that everyone out there is as best prepared as they can be. And this shows us the need to have been prepared before this happened, because when we start looking, I buy survival gear all the time, just like everybody else does, and all types of stuff. But I've seen the prices, and I know you have too, not just on the masks and the gloves, but on all types of survival gear. The prices have really, really dramatically increased over this, last couple of months. And it's making it almost impossible to find the simplest of gear in some situations. Supplies, I've noticed that the cost of food in the area I live in, and I live in Michigan currently, in the Detroit metro area, and the price of food in the supermarkets next to me it has increased, I'd say 20 to 30% minimum so far. I expect to see that go up as the supply of food goes down and the demand remains the same. And at this point in time, there's really nothing we can do to avoid this situation. We are in the middle of a global pandemic, which is leading to an economic meltdown, basically, here in the U.S. and possibly reaching further, maybe worldwide. We see a lot of countries that are already struggling financially before this happened. And this is only going to make it worse for those countries, because this virus isn't going anywhere. This virus is going to be around a little while. And hopefully we can get a grasp or a grip on it before too long, but that remains to be seen. As far as the updates here in Michigan, where I'm from today, Sunday the 5th of April, we have over 14,000 cases and a couple of thousand deaths. The majority of those cases are in my particular area, the Detroit metro area. So that's a little disconcerting, but there's nothing I can do except basically try to avoid the virus at this point. You can't fight something you can't see, but you can avoid it if you understand how it's transmitted and you understand how you can protect yourself. And one of my favorite preps has always been NBC CBRN gear. Now, don't have much need for my radiation detectors and all that right now, but the hazmat suits I've got, the mask, the gloves, the boots, and all those are going to come in very handy if this does get worse. And You can still get those online at pretty reasonable prices. The Tyvek suits have about doubled in price, puts them in about 20 bucks each. You might find some cheaper on eBay, but make sure you've got some personal protection. The masks, goggles, gloves, that's all good, but you might want to carry it a step further. I know I have for this. And if it does get worse, then it's better to be over prepared than under prepared. And here in Michigan, one of the things that bothers me the most is, I've been working from home for about 2 weeks now, which I'm thankful to my company for allowing me to do that, so I'm not missing a paycheck. But over that 2 week period, I have had to venture out in town a couple of times, to pick up a couple of things that I felt were necessary. But as I went out in town, one of the things I noticed is there's still people everywhere. I mean, there's a park on the way to the supermarket from my house. And that park, the entire parking lot was slap full, and there were people playing in it just like it was every other day. And this is what's going to lead us very shortly, I do believe, into a martial law type of quarantine, like what we've seen in China and other countries. If people don't start heeding these warnings, I know we need exercise. I know people want to get out of their homes. I do too. I mean, I hate being cooped up here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I can't stand it. But on the same hand, I would rather be a little bored than I would be out spreading or catching a virus. So this is something that every individual really needs to, evaluate. Is it that important that you go for that walk when you can exercise in your home? Nobody can say they can't. Yeah, it may be boring, but it is what it is right now. We are in a global pandemic, and these cases are increasing exponentially on a day-by-day basis. But I do believe that this is going to lead to a full-scale lockdown. It's going to lead to a ban on interstate travel. It's going to lead to people staying in their homes forcibly if they don't do it voluntarily. So this is something that we have to consider. And for those that have a bug out plan, for those that are financially able to bug out and possibly work from a remote location, this may be the time you want to consider that. I know I'm considering it right now. And over the next 3 to 5 days, I'm going to definitely make that decision as to whether I'm going to stay here or not, or I'm going to go to a different location, a much less populated area. But this is going to get worse before it gets better. We know that. I've got a lot of links in the description below to some really good articles. Not talking a lot about numbers in this video, just mainly some ideas. But keep in mind, this isn't going away. These numbers are going to increase. And as the numbers increase, that means our risk increases, and so does the risk to those around us. So I hope everybody stays safe out there. I hope everybody has what they need, and if you don't, get it while you can, because it's not going to be there for much longer. As these supply chains start slowing down, then that's really going to slow everything down. And something interesting, my cousin is a truck driver. He's a professional truck driver, has been for about 30 years, and he said recently that since this has started, especially in the last 2 weeks to a month, something unusual is that as he's going down the interstate, of course, the truckers stop at weigh stations. He said that his truck, along with all the others that are being pulled in there, are being searched by, SLED agents, by DOT agents. They're being searched for something, and no one's telling them what they're being searched for. They're just searching the entire trailer of the tractor trailer and, sending them on their way. So they're looking for something, which makes me curious. What is it they're looking for? And that has been going on. I've had more than one report on that from different people. But my cousin, I've known him all my life, of course, and he's not making this up. I do believe everything he's saying about it. But it is sort of funny. And we've already seen where people are getting these letters that allow them to travel state to state or allow them to be on the roads and purchase gasoline as essential workers. They wouldn't be getting those letters unless there was a full-scale lockdown that was planned. So I do expect something severe, something very severe to happen by that April 30th deadline. So leave your thoughts and comments below. If you've heard anything else that, may be of use to someone, and leave it below. And I hope everybody stays safe out there. I hope you got what you need. Thanks for watching. For now, Seer Survivor, out.